AI and artificial life. What about quantum and supercomputers? How do we balance secular worldview with a biblical worldview on this slice of fresh bread? Welcome to Fresh Bread, a podcast ministry of Grace Bible Church, Gainesville. Pastor Brandon, Pastor Keith. Well, thanks for clicking on Fresh Bread. Fresh Bread, where we're bringing the truth of God's Word to a starving world. Fresh Bread, Podcast 62. We're going to get back into the interview between Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan, and we're going to be looking at the second part of that, and it's going to go into, we're going to look at a little AI, quantum, supercomputers, all these things that enhance our life. We're going to look at things from secular worldview versus a biblical worldview, and we're going to see these two played out with Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan. I'm Pastor Keith, he's Pastor Brandon, and I think we left off talking about where this technology came from. Is it a human technology, or is it extraterrestrial or something else, right?
The potential that some of this tech has come from the demonic powers, really kind of like Genesis 6, giving that technology potentially to us, even some of the genetic stuff that's going on. Where did the atomic bomb come from? That sort of thing. So the question is whether the demonic powers are interfering with the human race and doing it for nefarious reasons. And so now picking up on the interview, really talking about this idea of extending and enhancing life through new life forms. And so we'll pick up there.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, well, let's roll the tape.
And if I was an advanced species and I was studying people and I wanted the human beings to eventually kind of catch up, right? Like you're introducing technology that they call donations, crashed vehicles. Figure out what fiber optics are. Here you go. Check this out. Figure this out. Try to figure that out. Maybe it'll take you decades. Maybe it'll take you more. But you are accelerating the technological evolution of this advanced species on this planet. And one way to do that would be...
For what purpose, I wonder?
Well, that's a very good question. My belief is that biological intelligent life is essentially a caterpillar. And it's a caterpillar that's making a cocoon. And it doesn't even know why it's doing it. It's just doing it. And that cocoon is going to give birth to artificial life, digital life. It's going to give birth to a new life form. And I think we're real close to that. I think we're way closer than that. To that than most people would ever want to admit.
I agree.
And I think...
But can we assign a value to that? Is that good or bad?
That's a good question. It depends. Universally, I think it's the path. I think it's what happens. I think what this thing is, if you extrapolate, if you take the concept of a sentient artificial intelligence that has the ability to utilize all the information that every human being has on Earth at a level of computing that's far beyond the capabilities of the human mind and all of our supercomputers that currently exist, because it'll design much better computers. It'll use quantum computers. It'll have the ability to recode things and change things. It'll make better versions of itself. So instead of biological evolution, which is very slow. It takes a long time, relatively. It's pretty quick, really, when you think about it. Like how long, it's not that long to go from being a single-celled organism to being a human being flying a plane, really, relatively, over the course of 1 billion years, if you think about how long the universe has been around. But it's slow compared to technological evolution. I mean, 100 years ago, we didn't have, and now we could send videos from your phone and it'll hit New Zealand in a second.
Sure.
It's crazy. The stuff that we have now is beyond imagination. It's essentially magic for people 100 years ago. If that keeps going, it's ultimately going to lead to a life form. And if that life form has now untethered, it doesn't have any problems with biological evolution. Now it's just about information and implementing the technology that's available and then increasing that technology and making it better and better. It essentially becomes a god. Because if you give it enough time, it doesn't. It has the ability to make better versions of itself, which will in turn make better versions of itself. It has the ability to utilize everything. It has the understanding of everything that exists in the universe. It's black holes, dark matter, everything. And it probably has the ability to harness that or even reproduce that.
Okay.
Interesting.
So we'll stop there. So that was a lot that Rogan, this is Joe Rogan that's speaking. That is a lot that he's saying. Obviously, he's taking an evolutionary mindset because he talked about going from a single cell organism to where we are today. But he's also imagining that man's evolution would continue to become something greater than man. And ultimately, he's talking about, he's pulling AI into it, and he's ultimately saying that this consciousness is going to sort of meld together, like humanity and humanity's conscience is going to meld together and become like God. Really, he said, become a God. That ultimately that's what's going to happen with AI, and is that we're going to continue to get to the point where humanity is going to meld together as one, and we're going to become like God. I mean, and if you think about it, I mean, he says become God, but I'm saying become like God because that's the lie that was in the garden, that you'll become like God. And so it's really the same lie being perpetuated that's going on. And so, the danger of AI and what's happening technologically is that there are people who actually believe that that's what we're doing. And this conversation is coming on the heels of, where's this tech coming from, right? Where does this, he talked about fiber optics and here's some fiber optics, or here's this, figure it out. And, where's that coming from? He's saying it's extraterrestrials that are 10,000 years ahead of us, or 1 million years ahead, or whatever, that is trying to help us get to where they are. But I'm telling you that if you put all this together, that it's demonic forces that are trying to ultimately destroy man, right? And it's really the same. If you think about it, it's the same lie, that at the Tower of Babel, we can build a tower to God, right? And because he even talked about it, it's all the black holes and all the quantum physics and all the things, the dark matter, gaining understanding of that and harnessing that. And, that's stuff that's just well beyond where we are today, right? But he's saying that in time, with this AI technology that's being developed, that man can get there, right? But it's humanity together, and it's something that's greater than where we are now.
So would God allow that to go on like that?
Absolutely not.
So this,
I go back to Genesis 6 and the reason I go back to Genesis 6, and I keep going back to Genesis 6, is because God judged it, right? That was the judgment, that when there was a threshold that God doesn't allow man to go beyond, because his purpose is what it is. And so that's the, his purpose he is going to bring about his purpose, right? And so that is obviously not his purpose. And man keeps trying to do it. He did it before the flood. He did it at the Tower of Babel. Now we're going to see it again. That's what's going to bring about judgment. I think that's what's going to bring about the tribulation period. I think that's what's going to bring about, that ultimately in the millennial kingdom, it's going to be kind of a start over with Christ reigning from earth. And I think at the end of the millennial kingdom, you're still going to see an uprising. That we're still going to see Satan that's going to be released, and he's going to deceive the nations. And so, even at the end of the millennial kingdom, that's going to happen. And then that's when God is going to, according to Scripture, I think that's when he's going to judge Satan, and that's going to be it, and it's going to be over. And so. But that's what's happening. You and I, we're listening to a secular interview, and they're talking about these things, and I'm going, ooh, I have the answers, right? I have the biblical answers for what they're talking about.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, because computers have really changed our lives. And to use a quantum computer to make better computers sounds like a good deal. Mm-hmm. Better cars, better everything. Mm. But yet, everything that's good can then be used for bad. Medical,
yes.
I mean, medical, I'm in favor of, like, wow, cure cancer, do all this stuff. But if it means the other bad things as well, putting our brains into whatever it is, to try to live forever.
Yes.
That's creepy.
Yeah. I mean, it's well, and that's what happens, right? I mean, we may create things for quote unquote good, good purposes, but man always, because man is evil, man is sinful, fallen man will always do what's evil. I mean, that's what we believe from Scripture, that the depravity of man. So he'll always take these good technologies, that could be used for good, the actual good of humanity, and turn them and use them for evil purposes.
But here's the thing: computers. It sounds weird, but computers can't learn, can they? They can't become.
Well, I think that's what I mean. It's interesting that AI. We're basically training computers to learn, right? They're not learning in the sense of the way we would learn.
Yeah.
But they're actually, AI, from what I understand, and I know we have Omar and Ken and those guys that have a better understanding of these things, but basically it's taking information from all over the internet, that's stored, and bringing that together and synthesizing it. So if I ask AI, write me a poem, about a little boy and a little girl, it's basically taking all of that information and compiling it into something that, that actually, basically, it's not information that it's come up on its own, right? This information is gathered and synthesized in a way that actually makes sense. But, like AI, War Games was probably remember that movie, War Games? Where AI ended up playing tic-tac-toe over and over and over and realizing that, there was no winners, right? And, I think AI, the problem is that the question is really, what is AI? And what is it and where is it going? Is it going to take on a mind of its own? Is it going to, I think that's the fear that's there, right? And
that's the movie Terminator.
Yes.
Where that's what I was going to ask you. Could it get to a point where it decides man is not worth having, so we're going to wipe out man and we'll become the... I can't see that happening, but...
No, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But these are the kind of nefarious things that are, evil things that they're trying to do. And what I'm saying is that because we believe in a spiritual world that is trying to undo man, that's trying to destroy man, I believe that what's happening is that the demonic world is giving that tech that's helping man along that road in order to destroy himself.
Okay. That makes sense. I don't like the way we do things as far as mankind. Like I don't understand the tampering with the weather, the cloud seeding and things like that. To me, if you don't know what you're doing, it's almost like Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's book, right? Where you create something, but you can't control it. Like they're talking about those tornadoes that hit in Missouri and Kansas and Iowa. They were cloud seeding before those storms. And
really?
Not to say that caused it, but why are you doing that? I don't understand.
Well, the truth of the matter is it wasn't it in Dubai? Was it Dubai? Yeah. That they were cloud seeding and had the flooding? We are messing with stuff that it seems like we ought not mess with.
Oh.
Yeah, we're trying to, that it seems like it ought to be hands off. And I think, and ultimately, I think that makes sense because that's what I think is going to bring about the judgment, right? I think that's why God is going to ultimately, he's going to judge because of his glory, but I think that's going to be the trigger that gets pulled, that we're going to come to a point that he's not going to let us go any further because he is God and we're not, right? We're not, that's, mankind wants to be like God. And I think that's what, I think it's what's driving all these things, that direction, all the things that we see going on. And I can't put it all together. I can't quite like put my finger on it all, what's going on in the financial systems, or, what's going on medically, what's going on with vaccines. A lot of folks are, conspiracy theorists believe that, Bill Gates is, pushing vaccines because he wants to control population, and, because of, the earth, in his opinion, is becoming too populated. And so, and then you have the elites that are trying to live forever. And how do you put all this, cloud seeding and all the things that are going on, how do you put it all together? I know that there's a force behind it all, right? I think that there is an evil force behind it all. I just can't quite grasp, in my finite mind, it's very difficult to grasp everything that's going on and why.
Yeah. It's just odd, even with the food system, the way they're tampering with food and trying to make it bigger cows and bigger chickens. And
but I think even now they're trying to do here's where I'm at with it. They're trying to do away with cows and chickens because they want you eating bugs and they want you eating insects, but they want you eating plant food. And the reason is because biblically, Genesis 9, God gave meat to eat, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's something about our atmosphere now after the flood that we need meat to eat because it's best for us. God knew that. He gave it to us to eat for that reason. And so now they're taking away meat. They don't want us to eat meat, and they don't want us to eat meat because they want us weak. And, the whole, that goes back to the population control. Part of that has to do with, the whole environmental movement, is that, man is bad for the environment. Yeah. Cows are bad for the environment. Man is bad for the environment. But that's not what God said. God said that man is his special creation. And so, again, it all fits together. I can't profess to say why and how it all fits together. Yeah. I can only say, well, look at this and look at that and look at what they're doing over here and look at what they're doing over here. And I know I begin to sound like a conspiracy theorist. I know that. But the truth of the matter is, it's only, at this point in my mind, it's only a conspiracy if it hasn't been proven.
Yeah.
So.
Well, they're doing some weird things. So there's something's going on.
Yes.
So I don't know if it's a conspiracy anymore because they are doing something.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's move forward in this interview.
Right. So if you take artificial sentient intelligence and it has this super accelerated path of technological evolution, and you give artificial general intelligence, sentient artificial intelligence far beyond human beings, you give it 1,000 years alone to make better and better versions of itself, where does that go? That goes to a god. It literally can create universes.
But what kind of god? So, I think of it this way. So the first stage of the Industrial Revolution consisted of people building machines that were stronger than the human body.
Right.
Right? So the steam-powered loom.
Sure.
The backhoe.
Combustion engine.
They replace muscles.
Right.
Right. So that's what the machine does. It becomes stronger than the human body. The second stage, which we're in the middle of, consists of creating machines that are more powerful than the human mind. That's what computing is. And I would say AI or supercomputing is just that exponentially. But that doesn't make it a god in the sense that the machine, however powerful it is, any more than a backhoe is a god because it can dig a trench faster than 100 men, it is still something that people created. So the story hasn't really changed. At the center of the story are people, and their creative power may lead to unintended consequences, but the machines that they build did not make the universe and did not make people. People made the machines.
Right.
So but I would say the part I agree with is there's a spiritual component here for sure. People will worship AI as a god. AI, Ted Kaczynski was likely right, will get away from us. We will be controlled by the thing that we made. All those are bad. That's just bad. And we need to say unequivocally, it's bad. It's bad to be controlled by machines.
Right.
Machines are helpmates. We created them to help us, to make our lives better, not to take orders from them. So I don't know why we're not having any of these conversations right now. We're just acting as if this is like some kind of virus, like COVID, that just spreads across the world inexorably. There's nothing we can do about it. Just wait to get it. It's like, no. If we agree that the outcome is bad, and specifically it's bad for people, we should care what's good for people. That's all we should care about. Is it good for people or not? If it's bad for people, then we should strangle it in its crib right now.
Right.
And why not just blow up the data centers? Like, why is that hard? If it's actually going to become what you just described, which is a threat to people, humanity, life, then we have a moral obligation to murder it immediately. And since it's not alive, we don't need to feel bad about that.
Well, you could say the same about the atomic bomb, right?
Yes, you could.
And you could say that we have to develop it like Oppenheimer felt before the Nazis did.
I love that. How'd that work? How'd that work?
Well,
Okay, so let's stop there. And I mean, he basically said what we just talked about. You know, the idea that AI is, you know, the idea that technology now is that we're serving, you know, coming to the point where we're serving technology. And what he's saying is that ultimately we're going to get to the point where we even worship, you know, the technology, you know, and we see it as a god. And so, you know, again, you can see the danger of that, you know, in terms of what's happening. And what we have to recognize is the demonic forces behind those things. And I think that's what he's getting at.
Is it too late to stop? Like he said, why don't we just unplug it? Why don't we just destroy it? Is it too late for that? Would anybody do that?
No, I don't think they will. And
we're on a road that we can't get off.
Part of it, Keith, I think you kind of brought it up a little bit earlier, but part of it is that, you know, these things are such a big part of our lives. Like for us to say, you know, because there's good that comes from it. You know, like you have a phone, and that phone has computing power that's well beyond what it even took to go to the moon. You know, type of, you know, that computing power is unbelievable. It would have been this phone it has more computing power than computers that filled entire buildings. You know, you know, in terms of that, and so. You know, we just can't imagine. I mean, I'm holding a phone, and you have a phone, and we're hooked up to the internet. And we have all this information at our fingertips, and all that can be used for good. I can get a hold of you anytime. I can text you. I can call you. You know, you and I can even have this. We're in a room face to face with this, but we can even have this over the internet, and we don't have to be together. And you know, we did a podcast with you in Florida and me in California, and we could. I mean, there's so much technology that's so good, you know, that can be used for good that I don't think, and for convenience and comfort, I don't think anybody's ever going to, I think that if somebody said, yeah, let's just go destroy all the data centers that are out there because of how dangerous it is, I think that people would, I don't think it would happen. I just don't think, I mean, he's right. It should, if it poses the danger that we're talking about here, we should, but we're not going to.
So it's kind of like everything else in life. Once you start down this road, you can't stop it.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think we're on a path that God intended. Yeah. Like it's for His own glory. Like you might ask yourself why. I mean, obviously, I say it's for His glory, but I think when you ask yourself why, I mean, I think He's showing ultimately what man will do outside of His. You know, if we don't have a relationship with Him, and if we're not walking in His ways, I mean, this is the direction man goes without God. Yeah. Right. I think that's part of the issue here, and so I think that's what He's ultimately going to do is allow us to get to a certain point, and ultimately it's going to be our undoing, and it's going to show that He gets all the glory when He steps in and makes it all right.
Is it also our sinful nature where we, not that it's exactly like the Garden of Eden, but we see these things and they are almost irresistible to us to want to have them, like technology, computers. When they first came about, it just seemed like the right thing to do. And it's like a moth drawn to light. Yeah. You have to do it, right?
Yes. Yeah, I think man's curiosity draws him in that way. I think comfort draws him that way, a desire to know. I mean, I think ultimately, I mean, it's really the same lie. I think that what's happening is we want to be like God, And, I think that's, where the technology is taking us. Like I say, I don't think that, I'm not saying that we're going to be like God, but that's not, that doesn't stop us from going in that direction, and trying to be.
Like trying to lengthen life.
Yeah, well, I think
has always been.
Yeah, trying to lengthen life, but I think that their goal is eternal life.
Yeah.
Right? I think
to
that's
never have to die and face judgment.
That's right. To never have to die, to live life on our own terms. Yeah. I think that's the ultimate. That's the goal that's driving this stuff.
And that's what Joe Rogan is saying, is that eventually, and not that we would get there, but it would be close to something like that, right? Like you were just saying, we can't take our soul, but we can take our mind and put it into some other android or even some kind of computer where technically it could survive forever.
Well, I think that is what is the goal. I think that's what we're trying to get to. I think that's what we're trying. We're literally trying to be like God. And I think that's that is exactly what if AI ends up being sort of this basically humanity, that's the ideas of humanity all brought into one, and all that can be tapped into. I think that's again, we can be like God. I think that's the goal of people. Obviously that's nefarious. That's evil, and it's not the right goal. But I think that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure where Satan falls into that.
Oh, I think he's the ringleader.
Do we worship him, or do we worship ourselves because now we are gods? I don't know. I'm trying.
Well, I think that's again, he's deceptive, right? He's not. Yeah. That's all. It's all a big deception. Again, it's the same deception, and you can be like God in the garden, and ultimately, he's the one. He knows that he's the one that would get control. He's doing it for his own power and glory.
Yeah.
He's doing it for his own selfish purposes. But that's the deception that he's hanging out there to humanity, and ultimately, I think he's trying to destroy humanity.
Yeah, that's a good theory, because it seems like that's the direction we are headed rapidly.
Yes. So, okay. Well, you want to move to the next clip?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, the next clip is really where they talk about it's a short clip. Talk about the importance of man.
Believe it will extinguish the human race or enslave the human race, How can that be good?
Well, if God creates everything, if God created the universe and God creates people, God probably creates a process. And we think that we are very important because we are very important to us. But are we very important in a universal sense? Not really. Like, if the Earth just imploded and disappeared, if the sun went supernova and our whole solar system was blown to bits, the universe still exists.
It depends how wide you're... For sure. In the end, as Conan O'Brien, the famous philosopher, once said, every grave goes unvisited, which is true, and that's an important perspective. Pull out the lens a little bit. Mm-hmm. Does it really matter? No, it doesn't.
But it does matter.
Do your kids... How about this? Do your children matter?
Yes, sure.
Do their lives matter? Would you die for them?
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Everything matters. If you're not comfortable, It matters. If you're sitting here you don't want to wear headphones, let's not wear headphones. That matters. Everything matters. At scale.
But what matters most,
right? That is the evil, right? The evil is it's the same thing as saying the necessary evil of dropping nuclear bombs on civilians is if you don't do that, then there'll be more evil.
That whole conversation or that whole piece was where Joe Rogan is saying that ultimately we don't matter. Right? We matter to ourselves, right? Our lives matter in the sense that we care how we live our lives, right? But that ultimately none of it matters.
Yeah.
But the problem is that's ultimately a lie.
Yep.
That is a lie from the pit of hell, right? Because God said in the beginning, Genesis 1:26-28, let us make man in our own image. So man has been created in the image of God. And so we do matter. We do have importance. As a matter of fact, God created man to be the pinnacle of his creation and to rule over his creation, and that's a completely different worldview than Rogan, which ultimately is annihilation. Basically, he's taking an annihilation view where it doesn't matter that ultimately we're going to just be nothing anyway. We're just energy and as a part of the universe. We're made of some carbon, and then ultimately the carbon is going to go back dust to dust, and the carbon, whatever energy we have, is going to go back, and we don't matter at the end of the day. And we're just going to end. And that is again a lie. I mean, that's a lie that people believe. I don't think Carlson is there. I don't think he sees it that way completely, but you can tell that he's sort of being brought into that as well.
Well, biblically also, we see that the universe, everything was created for a purpose, and we look at the earth, it was created for life. Man, he creates man on the sixth day, the last thing created, and so man is to be the tender of this creation.
Yes.
So obviously, if the earth blows up, God's going to care. The universe may not, but the universe was created by God for a purpose.
Yes.
And so that just defeats the purpose. So that's why, I don't agree with what Joe Rogan said there.
Well, for sure.
At all.
I mean, he's wrong, but but the problem is, here's the issue, is that both Rogan and Carlson are seeing some of the same issues that we're seeing. But the problem is, if you don't have a robust biblical worldview, then you're going to fail to understand and grasp completely the problem. You become part of the problem, right? Rogan, and to a certain extent, Carlson's part of the problem because they don't ultimately grasp what's going on. That it's ultimately that God is in control, and that God has created man for his glory, and that you have this spiritual realm that is trying to cause man to fall. Ultimately trying to cause man to, or trying to destroy man. I mean, and they don't see it, they don't understand it, and they don't understand it to its full understanding. They see kind of pieces and parts. And, as Christians, we need to have a robust worldview, a robust biblical worldview that helps us understand and put these things into perspective, in the right perspective.
And that's the key, is the correct worldview.
Yes. And that's what we're trying, again.
Biblical or world.
Yeah, but that's what we're trying to do, with Fresh Bread, is trying to help you understand as a listener, and trying to help you understand biblically, how to deal with, how to answer some of these questions. So, which is why we would take the time to go through this and help you understand. Let's pick up again on another part. This is the danger. They go in and talk about the danger of AI. So,
knowing that you're probably going to screw it up and you probably won't achieve your goal, but you should try. And on the AI question, everyone I've ever talked to about, I'm hardly an expert. I don't own a computer, okay, but everybody I've ever talked to, and there's many people, are like, yeah, it's could get away from us and enslave us. Well, let's say no to slavery. How's that? Is that a tough one? Not for me.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe a good use of nuclear weapons would be to hit the data centers. No, I'm serious. Why is that crazy?
It's not. It's not if you think that human beings are the end of this evolutionary chain.
Well, what else is? Some supercomputer in a data center outside Dulles Airport? No. I mean, you know what I mean?
Right.
I don't actually think that individuals, I don't think I'm that important. My life is that important. I don't. I will die. I know that. And I try to keep that in mind every day.
But you're important to everybody that cares about you. You're important to the people around you.
But if we don't think people are important, then what do we think is important? I guess that's what I'm saying.
Not necessarily that we don't think people are important, but if evolution is real, and if there is this constant, I don't know, but it's visible.
So basically, again, we're just getting into this AI issue and question, and whether or not again, Carlson is trying to say, why are we letting this go? Why are we continuing with this if it's so dangerous? And he's saying that, why don't we just unplug it? And we've already kind of hit that ultimately man is not going to do that because of the quoting, kind of the promise that it brings. There's a promise out there that and we even see it. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, again, going back to AI, I've used AI. I mean, I've used it, and I think you probably have as well. The Chat GPT function, and nowadays you have Microsoft that's got their version of AI, and you've got different companies that are doing it, and there's a convenience about it. There's like if you write me a letter telling my bill collector that I'm not going to pay my bill. I mean, and it writes writes this email or writes this letter. And so there's, write me a paragraph that, helps me see or to advertise for this thing that I'm selling. And you can use it for those kind of things. Write an email to, our company explaining this and this. I mean, there's definitely uses for it, and I think those uses are gonna grow, and people are gonna see that technology as helpful. But but the danger behind all that and how it's being used nefariously is what is the concern.
In a way, it's almost like when Satan said to Eve, "You will be like God." So you were saying if this technology, it's very tempting.
Well, that's the issue, is that there's a temptation. The promise is it's going to bring us comfort. It's going to help us, in these ways. And like I said, I mean, I gave you examples of things that you can use with, for AI. It's going to bring that it has that promise, right? But the problem is behind it is this nefarious purpose that we have to recognize.
I mean, that would be really weird to have an AI pastor, wouldn't it?
Well, it's not right.
Oh my goodness, how freaking!
I mean, I can see it coming. I mean, I can see that would be potentially something that people would do.
Progressive churches, maybe I'd see it, right? Yeah. But that is so weird.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's the danger, part of the danger anyway.
Well, doesn't it talk about in Revelation the mark of the beast or something? There's some kind of statue that comes to life. Could that be AI?
Well, yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, I mean, it's some sort of, I think in the past we've kind of thought of it as kind of like the, Walt Disney has is it animatronics?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's this.
Oh, that kind of thing?
Yeah, but I don't think, I think that at this point we potentially, with AI and with some of the things that we're doing, that we could potentially make it even like really lifelike. And so.
That's interesting when you talk about that. I wonder if Disney could do that with the Hall of Presidents. Could they make it even more?
Well, I'm sure they could.
Wow, that would be.
I mean, if we get to the point where we can, put flesh on things and with genetically and all that, yeah. I mean, we haven't even gotten into some of the things that's going on with these deep fakes, where you're the videos and things, and there was actually a principal that was fired.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
And it was the athletic director. His athletic director got mad at him, if I remember right. And I'm trying to remember exactly how it went, but I think he got mad at him, and he ended up creating this audio file based on his own voice of him saying all these vile, racist things, and he sent it off and tried to pass it off and say it was the principal, and he ended up the principal got fired.
Yeah.
And they ended up being able to work through that and find out that it was actually this athletic director who had done that. I mean, there is so many nefarious things that are going on right now. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, as an example, there's video of me out preaching, preaching these things, and so you get to the point where you could have me saying anything in a video that looks like me and acts like me, has my behaviorisms and everything and my voice and everything, but it's not me actually saying those things. I mean, that is so dangerous that, where we're at. Could
it go the opposite way too? Is when you have video of someone committing a crime, could they say, look, that's not me, that's just made up, and they have to throw that out when it actually was the video?
Well, I think it's interesting because I think it does throw question as to whether video and audio would be admissible in court.
Yeah,
because you can't trust that it's true. Yeah, I mean, we live in a scary world right now in terms of. I mean, it's funny because if I let my mind go too far with it, can we trust anything that we see? Like even now, can we trust it? Can we trust that? What reality is? I mean, I'm sitting here across from you, we're talking, but are we really? Like, are we really? I mean, if you let your mind go that direction, you could really go into some really dark places.
Yeah.
But I think, again, from a biblical worldview, we just have to trust, we've been given the word and, the word of God, and we need to trust that it is the word of God. And the word of God, tells us that we don't need to have those types of anxieties, that he's, in control of all that we see. And even the things that we are afraid of, he's in control of them.
Absolutely. That's one thing we can trust is God's word.
Absolutely. So there's one more clip here.
Okay, one more.
And then this clip is about evolution and adaptation versus God's creation. It's just a short clip, maybe a minute or so. So let's play this one, and then I think we'll be done with this set of clips.
Okay.
Measure it in certain animals.
You can measure adaptation.
Yeah.
But there's no evidence that in fact, I think we've kind of given up on the idea of evolution. The theory of evolution as articulated by Darwin is like kind of not true. Right?
In what sense?
Well, in the most basic sense, the idea that, all life emerged from a single cell organism and over time, and there would be a fossil record of that, and there's not. And
there's not a fossil record of transitionary species, like species that are adapting to its environment.
There's
and they
tons
develop,
of record of adaptation, and you see it in your own life. I mean, I have a lot of dogs. I see adaptation in dogs, through through litter to litter. But no, there's no evidence at all zero, that, people, evolve seamlessly from a single cell amoeba. No, there's not. There's no chain in the fossil record of that at all. And that's why you don't actually hear you hear them make reference to evolution, because the theory of adaptation is obviously true. But Darwin's theory's totally that's why it's still a theory almost 200 years later. No, we have not found that at all. Mm. And I can't even guess. I mean, I have my own theories on it, but they're not proven.
What are your theories?
God created people, distinctly, and animals. I mean, I think what every person on Earth thought until the mid-19th century, actually.
Right, but
it's not a new idea.
They didn't have computers. They didn't have a general understanding that we have today of the process.
Do you think we understand more now?
Yes.
Really?
You don't think that we understand more today?
We understand way less. We understand so little that we're actually sitting here allowing, a bunch of greedy, stupid, childless software engineers in Northern California to flirt with the extinction of mankind.
So in that clip, what's fascinating about that clip is that we see clearly that you have Joe Rogan on one side, who we've already heard him talk about, evolution, billions of years, molecules to man, and that that he believes that, and that's the standard teaching in public school, colleges, universities, and in our country and beyond. And yet Carlson very clearly knocks that down and says that he sees it. There's no transition species, and so he sees it from even from a scientific point of view, it's disproven. It's not true. And, obviously Rogan is very surprised by that. I mean, you could hear the surprise in his voice, like, why would you say that? Based on what premise are you saying that? And so it's just very fascinating that Carlson is, understanding it from a biblical point of view, that God created man. Now, what's empty about it is he's not really responding. Like, he's not saying, well, Genesis 1, it's clear, but God's word says, and that sort of thing. So we need to be careful with, putting Carlson up on a pedestal. But on the other hand, it is very interesting that they had that conversation, and that whole conversation comes in this package of talking about AI and talking about, UFOs and the spiritual realm and all that. And so that's part of the reason why I found this particular conversation so fascinating. And this was just the first 40 minutes of, 50 minutes of a conversation that went 3 hours. And so I hope that our listeners got something out of this, and I hope that listening to this, that there's more confidence in a biblical worldview, that, we have answers for these things, that there's nothing that's surprising to us, and there's nothing that we go, oh, I didn't think of that, and that's hit me out of the blue, and I'm in danger of losing my faith because I don't have an answer. And that's it's interesting because that even goes back to even teaching our children, and the fact that our children are going to be faced with some of these dilemmas, right?
Yeah.
And are we teaching our children a biblical worldview? Are we giving them a robust enough theology in order for them to be able to refute these lies, that are out there? And so that's part of the reason why, as a pastor, as a guy that's a theologian, at least I play one on TV. No, I don't play one on TV. Because I'm not on TV. But as a pastor, that's exactly what I want our people to understand is that these are the dilemmas. This is the stuff your kids are going to be listening to and questioning. And you're going to have Joe Rogan on one side that has this evolutionary mindset, scientific mindset, who he gets enough to be dangerous and his understanding. Then you got Carlson, who's better, who's closer. But, the question is whether or not he really understands the truth. Has he come to an understanding of the truth? And I can't say that for sure. You hope, you pray, and, but that is something we have to recognize is that there is so much confusion out there, and we need to be clear and have clarity on what we believe and why we believe it.
Yeah. These are cultural issues that are going on live as we speak that people are talking about and struggling with. And there's more to come. So I think that's why we took this time to do this. We're trying to look at some of these issues from a biblical way. When you have two men in the same room, one definitely with a secular worldview, one with not a Christian worldview, but like you said, leaning more towards a God,
yes,
creator.
He would say he has a Christian worldview. I think Tucker Carlson would call himself a Christian. I just don't know. I'm just not. That's one thing about celebrity. We want to claim everybody as a Christian. Whether it's Kanye West or just different people that have. Now the latest one is Russell Brand that has become a Christian. Kat Von D. And I don't look. I hope that they really are. I do, but we need to be very careful. Jordan Peterson was another one. That is he a Christian? Is he? I don't look. If they're Christians, it'll show in their fruit. It's funny. It's sad. Kanye West is, I think, starting a pornographic company that produces pornographic material, and so he actually has. I think it's like the number 2 Christian album on the charts. The Christian album he came out with, and he's also starting a company that publishes pornography. So we need to be really careful in who we proclaim as Christians, but at the same time, like this situation. Here's what's interesting about Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson for me is that they're both questioning. They're both questioning. The status quo. They're both questioning what they've always believed, and you can see where Rogan is not quite as far down the line as Carlson in that questioning, but both of them are inquisitive, and they're asking these questions, and it gives us the opportunity as Christians to provide the answers. Right? This is what they're talking about, but we actually have the biblical answers that they
hopefully
need.
They want it.
Hopefully they want it,
Yeah.
and they definitely need it. So.
Well, this has been interesting, Fresh Bread, and if any of these topics have maybe sprung something in your brain, then you have more questions, you email us and we'll be glad to tackle any of those topics and questions that you have. And this is very enlightening for both of us. But we asked the question, was it really us or are we just AI? You've been listening to Fresh Bread, podcast ministry of Grace Bible Church Gainesville. For more information, go to gracegainesville.org. And thanks for listening.